I say this every election cycle, and I'll say it again. The 2024 political field was intense, so don't get left behind in 2025. If you're running for office, the first thing on your to-do list should be securing your name on the web. With a yourname.vote domain from GoDaddy.com, you'll stand out and make your mark. Don't wait. Get yours today.
Sam and I are always talking about being prepared, whether it's hurricanes in Florida, earthquakes in California, flooding in Arizona, or supply chain disruptions.
Exactly, Chuck. When pharmacies shut down, it does not matter how tough you are, you still need access to critical medicine.
That's why we trust Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with 5 life-saving antibiotics and key over-the-counter meds, so you're covered when things get disrupted.
And Jace goes beyond just the Jace case. They also offer first aid kits, daily prescriptions, and long-term nutrition with Jace Pantry. Don't wait for the next hurricane warning or natural disaster. Take control of your health and peace of mind today.
Visit jace.com and use code FUTURE at checkout for $10 off your order. That's FUTURE at JASE.com. To run a successful business, you need one thing: customers. And how do you get customers? You get them through advertising. You get them through lead generation. But what happens if the leads don't exist or they don't have valid contact information? This is a familiar story all businesses deal with. Then they call these leads who don't exist, or they're bad numbers, or they're not in their service area. Argus 101 verifies every lead before your team picks up the phone. It's a real person in your area and a neighborhood that matches your ideal customer. Your team only calls people worth calling, thus saving you money. Free trial at argus101.com. That's ARGUS101.com. Help your business expand today. Go to argus101.com. ARGUS101.com.
Welcome to Breaking Battlegrounds with your host Chuck Warren. I'm Sam Stone. As always, we're jumping right into it with our first guest of the day, Kamden Mulder, William F. Buckley Jr. Fellow in Political Journalism and a graduate of Hillsdale College. She works with the National Review Institute. We very much appreciate having her on the program. Kamden Mulder, welcome to Breaking Battlegrounds.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Kamden, we always like our audience to understand our guests a little bit. Tell us how you got into journalism.
Yeah, of course. So when I was young, just loved writing, loved storytelling, and it sounds silly, but when you're trying to decide what career you want to do, sometimes you just go on Google and look up, hey, what can I do where I can write? What can I do where I can, speak and talk to people? And journalism was just a natural fit. So as you said, I went to Hillsdale College and they have a wonderful journalism program there. So got involved early on with the school paper, did some internships, things like that, and was lucky enough to, at the end of my senior year, apply for the Buckley Fellowship with National Review, and I'm able to cover, news, general politics, congressional races, gender ideology in schools, all of those things, and I've just really enjoyed it, and it's so fun to be able to, write for a living, talk for a living, and yeah, I enjoy it so much.
Does Hillsdale have a good journalism program?
It does, yeah. It's the Dow Journalism Center, and it's run by John Miller. He's phenomenal, and it's a pretty robust program. And yeah, people end up at National Review, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post. So
that's great.
It's very fun, and the newspaper is very fun every week. We took it very seriously for a group of college students. It was student run. But yeah, I was very blessed to be a part of that and benefit from all of the, networking connections and everything I learned there.
So you recently went on with a good friend of our show, we call him Baseball Crank on Twitter, and talked about and he's been on the show many, many times, but you talked about and did a webinar on inside the Biden's Department of Justice operation to target pro-life groups. That's obviously has not received much national attention from other news outlets. Can you please give our audience a background of what happened and what are the results of it?
Of course. So the Trump DOJ, they've really been looking into how, the Biden DOJ has targeted, whether it's Christians, pro-lifers, just frankly anyone that disagreed with, Democrat and liberal ideology. And in this report, 100+ page report, we found that Biden officials were working with groups like Planned Parenthood or the National Abortion Federation to target and persecute pro-life activists. So the way they did this was they essentially misused the FACE Act. The FACE Act promises that people will have access to facilities that provide, quote unquote, reproductive care, or even, just different religious organizations. So, for example, the FACE Act was what Don Lemon was charged under when he barged into that church in Minnesota with all those protesters, just for another example of how that works. But they used the FACE Act to persecute pro-life Christians who were protesting outside of, Planned Parenthood, things like that. So this was a back and forth between the pro-abortion groups and the Biden officials, but essentially they were talking about these protesters, their personal information, whether it's driver's license numbers, travel plans, who they're connected to in terms of like family and friends, to track them down and pin them with these FACE Act charges.
So how many investigations, or how widespread was this?
There were, dozens and dozens and dozens of these investigations, and some of them, were as much as like the FBI raiding people's homes. These people were charged. Some of them even faced jail time. And we found major discrepancies in the amount of jail time that people were faced. So if you were a pro-life protester or activist and you were charged under the FACE Act, you may have gotten on average 13 months. A 13-month sentence. But we saw under, the Biden administration, if you were a pro-abortion activist, you maybe only had a 3-month sentence. And so these charges were just absolutely outrageous, and they were persecuting people just because they disagreed with what the Biden administration was espousing, and it was obviously very uneven and very unfair. There was one man out of Michigan, and him and his daughter were specifically targeted, and they had travel plans to Montana, and the abortion groups and Sanjay Patel, who worked under the Biden administration, they were going back and forth detailing where this man was going to be, and he was ultimately charged. The man from Michigan was ultimately charged under the FACE Act. So we saw so many egregious examples of this, and it's such a double-edged sword, because on the one hand it's so great that this has come to light and that people are talking about it, especially when much of the Biden administration, the way people are remembering it, was just shadowed by the former president's decline. Yeah. But at the same time, and as Dan said in our webinar a couple weeks ago, it's really difficult to find actual justice for this. President Trump was able to pardon most of the people who were unfairly and unduly targeted under the FACE Act and by the Biden administration. But beyond that, other than just spreading the word about what happened, it's difficult to find any real justice.
It's hard to see this changing, Chuck, without punishment for the people who are weaponizing our justice system.
So did they do form shopping on this to find judges to give them tougher sentences than the pro-choice folks? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure if but I can imagine they
had to.
I would assume it. Yeah.
They were doing whatever they could to get, because I don't know how without doing that you would have such a large discrepancy in the sentences. Right. I mean, on average 13 months for pro-lifers versus 3 months for pro-abortion activists. I mean, that's outrageous. Especially when, and this is even more of a frustrating part of this too. We've seen pro-life activists and pro-life groups. I've gone to the March for Life multiple times and talked with people there. It's overwhelmingly peaceful. I mean, you have nuns walking down the street. You have people praying. It's not some violent group, going out and with signs screaming. But that's not what we see on the other side of the aisle, and that's often not what we see with these pro-abortion activists. And so even just taking a step back and looking at it from that angle, I can't fathom how they would be able to come up with these sentences and the discrepancy between the two without cherry picking certain judges in certain jurisdictions to bring these cases up in.
Well, and this is scary, because if you look at what's going on, for instance, in the UK right now, where they have, someone goes and stands outside of an abortion clinic, not even talking to anyone, just wearing a cross, and they're arrested, or saying a prayer silently and they're arrested. It doesn't seem like we were actually all that far away from that under Biden.
No, you're certainly right. And it's crazy too because we all think that we're so different than all these other places, with the Constitution, First Amendment protections, and all these things. We assume that we have the right to stand out front of an abortion clinic and share the gospel or try to counsel these women who are considering potentially getting an abortion. But as you said, we found in practice it's really not that different. And so great that the Trump administration was able to look into all of this and publish this report, but also too then it brings to light that we need some major repair in the federal government and the justice system to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
What would you tell a progressive who says Trump is squashing free speech, but then you have examples like this? I mean, this is truly an attack on free speech, is it not?
It 100% is. And I would say, that it's impossible in a lot of ways to find common ground with these people. We operate on completely different moral frameworks.
It's a morally asymmetrical battle that we're in because we still believe in order.
Mm-hmm. Order, also too, just objective truth. The fact that a fetus is, a living human being, or the fact that a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
Right.
These people are operating just on a completely different playing field than we are. So it's hard to look and have those conversations and get someone to agree. But also at the same time, I would say I would ask them to point to an actual example on where there was, someone from their camp who, received a harsher sentence that was, unfairly harsher than someone from the pro-life camp. And I just don't think they could. I haven't seen in my reporting or my research any example that would back up someone who says the Trump administration is squashing free speech. And it sounds silly to say, but truly Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing, and people will say or feel just about anything because they hate the president, which is just really unfortunate. And it really all just boils down to that.
Let's quickly move to another article you just wrote on May 22nd. Judge dismisses criminal case against Kilmar Abreu Garcia. Now, this is a never-ending story in the Trump administration. We can't seem to get him out. And then, so tell our audience what happened in Tennessee and how the judge said you can't do this because this is purely retribution, and just seemed to dismiss all the criminal facts. So could you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Of course. So essentially, this judge, as you said, out of Tennessee, an Obama-appointed judge, he determined that when the Trump administration brought the criminal charges against Kilmar Abreu Garcia, it was in light of the Maryland case that determined that he did not actually have an deportation order brought against him, that he couldn't be deported. So they considered it sort of retribution against the fact that they weren't actually legally able to deport him. And so it's like, oh, if we can say now that he committed all these crimes and he was involved in these gangs, well, now we'll be able to deport him. So essentially, they had to prove that the prosecution of Abreu Garcia was vindictive, and it's a difficult thing to prove. But essentially, the judge said that there was enough evidence that it wasn't accurate and it wasn't a fair persecution of Abreu Garcia, so dropped all the criminal charges. I will say he can still ultimately face deportation, and that's an important caveat in this piece. He agreed to be deported recently, not back to El Salvador, but he agreed to be deported, and so there could potentially still be a deportation proceeding. But in terms of his criminal charges for potentially, being involved with gangs and things like that, those were just completely wiped clean.
Don't prosecutors do this type of thing? We got 1 minute left here, but don't prosecutors do this often? If they got somebody and they're having problems with charges, they go back to other things they could bring up. Isn't this a common tactic in prosecution?
You would think so. And I don't really understand why if it happened, it happened.
Right.
Why does it matter?
A crime's a crime. A crime's a crime.
Exactly. And as long as it's within the statute of limitations, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be brought up again. But obviously this judge found that to be a vindictive use of the criminal justice system.
And that's a fundamental problem right now, is that judges on the left do not believe in the law.
No.
They believe in the politics of the day. We're going to be coming back with more from Kamden Mulder here in just a moment, so stay tuned. Breaking Battlegrounds. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We're going to be continuing on in just a moment with Kamden Mulder, William F. Buckley Jr., Fellow in Political Journalism at the National Review Institute. But first, a word from about one of our sponsors.
One of our sponsors. Folks, do you know someone in your family or a friend or a neighbor who has a private student loan and they're close to default or in default? Well, if they are and they have a distressed loan, they need to go to YREFI. You can go to yrefy.com, and there they will help you custom make a loan repayment plan that pays off your loan and doesn't hurt your credit. And they don't care what your credit score is. That's the great thing about it. They are going to work with you to give a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. Not what they think you should pay, but based on your ability to pay. So if you're in trouble with your private student loan, which 15% of Americans have, call YREFI at 877-400-9989. Again, 877-400-9989, or you can learn more at yrefy.com.
All right, continuing on now with Kamden Mulder. Kamden, one of your recent articles has been on Steve Descano, the Commonwealth Attorney for Virginia. Tell folks what's going on there, because that is not a story that is broken out nationwide yet.
Of course. So, I'm over on the east side of the country, D.C., so this is all in my backyard. But Steve Descano, he's done an embarrassing job as, Fairfax's Commonwealth Attorney thus far. He's repeatedly let multiple career criminals, they're violent, they're often illegal immigrants, off with either no charges or lessened charges, and Virginians are certainly feeling it. What really sparked all of this was Stephanie Minter, a woman from Virginia. She was stabbed to death at a bus stop. This was back earlier this year. And the alleged perpetrator, Abdul Jallo, he is a national from Sierra Leone. And after, digging into his criminal history, we found that of the 40 charges brought against him, which most of them were violent throughout just the time he's been in America, Steve Descano's office dropped over half of them. So essentially letting this man out free into the community. And then we saw, unfortunately, it's obviously still pending going to trial, but as him being the main suspect in this case, a woman is now dead. And so that was what sort of sparked a lot of this and the spotlight being shown on Steve Descano. He recently testified in front of Congress and, struggled to defend his office's immigration policies and just his tenure thus far. And there's been plenty of other examples as well. There was a guy, and he's almost 19 years old, and he's an illegal immigrant and was able to go to school in Fairfax, because Virginia has a law that allows illegal immigrants to attend public school up to the age of 22, which is just absolutely insane.
Oh my goodness.
And
22?
22 at high. Oh.
22. Yep. So on the taxpayer dollar,
you
legal immigrants can go to public schools in Virginia up to the age of 22.
When did that become law?
It's been law for quite a long time at this point. And when Glenn Youngkin was in office, at least, he had referendums in place and executive orders in place that better allowed ICE to work with local law enforcement and local agencies. But since Governor Spanberger has been in office, she, of course, got rid of that and has made it much more difficult for ICE to work with local law enforcement. And so this is just another example, too, on how, broader Virginia state politics are playing out. But here in Fairfax, this illegal immigrant in the high school, he groped 12 young girls. And once again, Steve Descano's office, he was willing to let him off on bail. And we saw that he was actually sentenced recently and only got, just under a year sentence, even though what he did was obviously so egregious. And, so many girls are nervous to go to school now and concerned about all of that.
What are the parents saying about this?
The parents are ultimately frustrated. They don't understand why it seemed like the school was more willing to protect the illegal immigrant than their daughters. They don't understand why Virginia politicians were more willing to protect the illegal immigrant than their daughters. So they're of course frustrated. I've spoken with teachers who have shared that they're frustrated, in the district. I spoke to one teacher and she told me she learned about the assault at the same time that everyone else did, so online when the news broke. So we're just seeing a lot of these egregious examples of these cases in Virginia, and it all boils down to the fact that Steve Descano is extremely soft on crime, especially when it comes to illegal immigrants. That's in part because he emphasizes Fairfax County's trust policy, which essentially it allows illegal immigrants to use city services and report various crimes or things like that without fear of being deported. But in reality, what we've seen is that it actually just allows more and more illegal immigrants to enter into Virginia. A stat right now out is that 1 in 5 people in Virginia, so 20%, are in Fairfax County, so 20% of the county is either deportable, so like an illegal immigrant, or living with someone who could be deported. So we're just seeing, unfortunately, that the lives of illegal immigrants and what's best for them is being prioritized over American citizens.
And these young people he groped were girls, right? So he groped underage girls.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Democrats
cared about women.
I know.
Only when it's convenient.
That's
it's
really
only when
odd.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to the end of this, because we only have a couple of minutes left here, Kamden, I wanted to touch on 2 articles that you've written that are kind of connected. One, RNC heads into 2026 midterms with most cash on hand ever. 2, Trump-backed Texas AG Ken Paxton beats John Cornyn in the Senate primary runoff. What is the mood among Republicans in D.C. right now in regards to our ability to hold the House and Senate?
I'd say Republicans are hopeful. Obviously, just historically, it's a difficult election to be going into when you currently hold both chambers of the House and the presidency. I mean, in history, it's rare that you're able to hold on to that power post midterms. And I think the sentiments around the war with Iran doesn't help that. People are frustrated with gas prices. They're frustrated with how long this is taking. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think the one really great thing, especially with, let's say, Texas and Ken Paxton, he's going up against James Tallarico, who is just extremely progressive. I mean, he has his comments talking about how God's a woman and how we should...
That guy makes my skin crawl, Kamden. Chuck, like every time I see him on TV speaking, literally makes my skin crawl. Something about him just does not add up.
He doesn't pass the vibe test, does he?
No, certainly not. That's a great way to put it, that he doesn't pass the vibe test. And Texas is the #1 consumer of meat in the country, and he's going around saying that people should stop eating meat because of climate change. So when you're going up against, just such a progressive, liberal, ideological candidate, hopefully that works in Republicans' favors and people take the more common sense approach, the more American approach, to say the least. But just the reality that it's a midterm election in Trump's second term that'll be a difficult hump to get over.
Well, I think I can't believe I'm saying this. I think he's actually an odder human being than Graham Plattner, and I think he's more dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also betting on barbecue over Tallarico.
Well, Kamden Mulder, she is with the National Review. She's a William Buckley Fellow in Political Journalism. She has been a fantastic guest, and she is no relation to Fox Mulder of the X-Files. Kamden, we appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was so great to talk today. If you'd like to check out more of my work, feel free to go to nationalreview.com. I'm also on X at Kamden Mulder _. And yeah, I'm just thrilled to be able to talk about what's been going on in America.
Thank you so much, Kamden Mulder. Breaking Battlegrounds coming right back.
To run a successful business, you need one thing: customers. And how do you get customers? You get them through advertising. You get them through lead generation. But what happens if the leads don't exist or they don't have valid contact information? This is a familiar story all businesses deal with. Then they call these leads who don't exist, or they're bad numbers, or they're not in their service area. Argus 101 verifies every lead before your team picks up the phone. It's a real person in your area and a neighborhood that matches your ideal customer. Your team only calls people worth calling, thus saving you money. Free trial at argus101.com. That's ARGUS101.com. Help your business expand today. Go to argus101.com. ARGUS101.com. Hello, Breaking Battlegrounds listeners. Did you know that private student loan debt in the United States totals about $300 billion? That's with a B. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed, which means people are behind on payments. Why Refi, who is a proud sponsor of our show, refinances this distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They don't even care what your credit score is. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. Why Refi is not a debt settlement company. They work with each borrower individually to tailor a loan that meets your specific financial situation and helps you pay this loan off. So, folks, if you would like to learn more how to put your mind at ease and your budget back on track, call Why Refi at 877-400-9989 and tell them Sam and Chuck sent you. You can go and look into them at YREFI, YREFY.com to get more information. They will help you reduce your monthly payment and guarantee interest rates under 6%, ensuring financial relief to you as you pay off your private student loan. Jump on that website or call them today.
All right, imagine this. You're running for president. Yes, president. What's the first thing you need? Well, besides the $1 million fundraising, you need to secure your web domain. You need your name, .vote. Easy to remember, straight to the point, and a direct link to your campaign. No, but seriously, whether you're getting out to vote or convincing people that yes, you can fix the potholes on Main Street, a .vote domain helps you stand out. It's not just a website, it's a call to action. Head over to GoDaddy.com or Name.com, type in your name, .vote, and boom, you're ready to make a lasting impact. Get started today with your .vote web address.
Sam and I are always talking about being prepared, whether it's hurricanes in Florida, earthquakes in California, flooding in Arizona, or supply chain disruptions.
Exactly, Chuck. When pharmacies shut down, it does not matter how tough you are, you still need access to critical medicine.
That's why we trust Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with 5 life-saving antibiotics and key over-the-counter meds, so you're covered when things get disrupted.
And Jace goes beyond just the Jace case. They also offer first aid kits, daily prescriptions, and long-term nutrition with Jace Pantry. Don't wait for the next hurricane warning or natural disaster. Take control of your health and peace of mind today.
Visit jace.com and use code FUTURE at checkout for $10 off your order. That's FUTURE at JASE.com.
In today's digital world, standing out is more important than ever. Whether you're running for office, leading a cause, or hosting a vote for the cutest pet in town, you need a web domain that's simple, memorable, and action-oriented. You need a .vote web domain. It's clear, impactful, and establishes a lasting presence for your campaign. Don't wait. Head to GoDaddy.com or Name.com, type in your name, .vote, and get started today. Because after all, every pet deserves a web address that's as special as they are.
Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We're continuing on now. Our next guest, Khosro Isfahani. I knew I was going to mess that up, even though I got it perfect. Butchered it right after I got it perfect in the off-air check-in, because that's what I do, folks. But welcome, Khosro Isfahani, Research Director at the National Union for Democracy in Iran. We are thrilled to have you on the program. He's had some great pieces out. But first, we wanted just to get a little bit about your background. What was it like growing up in Iran?
Thanks for having me, and don't worry about my name. It's not an easy, common name.
Well, we need to learn it, though.
No, we try to get these things right, and I'm master at not getting it right.
Oh, but I appreciate the effort. Yeah, you asked me to tell you a bit about growing up in Iran and the experience that I had. I was born and raised in the country in 1990. Both my parents were activists. My dad was a political prisoner in the 80s in Iran. He was jailed for 4 years and survived mass executions literally by chance. His sentence was up and ended and got out a couple of months before the Islamic Republic executed tens of thousands of political prisoners summarily, many of them without any legal proceedings, and dumped their bodies in mass graves. I grew up with the stories of these brave men and women who had a vision for the future of Iran. A country that can be prosperous, that can provide for its people, and they were killed for it. I grew up with that dream, and from an early age, my parents started educating me about politics and what's happening in the country, from listening to radio channels that were beamed into Iran from outside, from Israel and US, from Radio Farda, the Persian version of the RFE RL, to other radio services. We were getting news from outside and trying to make sense of what's happening in the country. In 1990s, when I was 8, my dad took me to the first protest movement rally that I ever attended in my life. Students in Iran had risen up against a crackdown on press freedoms. And we were on the street walking with my father, this man that I looked up to, the titan in my life. And the students started chanting death to the dictator. And I looked towards this man. He raised a fist to the sky, trying to repeat the chant, and the pain of watching all of those friends, comrades being executed broke in his throat, and he couldn't repeat the chant. And he looked at me and said, "If you want, you can chant." And I started chanting death to the dictator, Marg bar diktator. And apparently I have been doing that since. Yeah, in 2009, when I was a first-year university student studying physics out of everything, there was the Green Movement in Iran, where people rose up against the regime, stealing the results of a presidential election, not even allowing people to choose one of the regime insiders as the president. And I was a student at university, and I apparently were seeking trouble. I started organizing rallies at my university, taking my classmates to protest outside the campus, producing pamphlets and political material.
It takes a lot of courage to do that, both for you and for the people who were then following you. We only have 2 minutes left in this segment, but
Sure.
But everyone who was doing that, you knew what the potential consequences were, and so did they, right?
Yes, absolutely. But the thing is, when you live under a regime like the Islamic Republic that is an enemy of life, when you grow up with stories about brave people who sacrifice their lives for a better future, when you constantly are absorbing material, whether it's books or movies coming out of the United States, presenting another view of life where human dignity is celebrated, where freedom is cheered for, it comes naturally to you. It's not a choice, it's what you do. You jump in the sea and expect it to part. And fortunately, I have survived jumping in the sea too many times, and I haven't been killed or jailed. I've been interrogated and arrested, but it has never reached the point of no return for me. Unlike many others who have sacrificed their life, limb, and liberty under the Islamic Republic for a shred of the freedoms that many people in the United States take for granted.
Unbelievable stuff. Folks, you definitely want to follow Khosro Isfahani. Follow him on X. It's at KHOSROLSFAHANI. So, folks, look him up and follow him. When we come back, we're going to get into more of his story and some of the articles he's written about how he saw America vilified in Iran. Then came the culture shock. And frankly, we have so many Americans who are disappointed or unhappy with this country, but it is still a beacon of the world. And that's another piece he has out we want to cover. So we very much thank you for being on the program. Folks, stay tuned. Breaking Battlegrounds is coming right back. Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds with us, Chuck Warren. I'm Sam Stone. Continuing on now with Khosro Isfahani, Research Director at the National Union for Democracy in Iran. You can follow him on X at Khosro Isfahani.
So, do you feel we're going to have a 60-day ceasefire to negotiate a true nuclear,
dearmament agreement or
deal? Do you feel that's going to happen?
There is going to be a pause in kinetic action against the Islamic Republic. Everyone on every side of this conflict needed this pause for multiple reasons. And it's going to happen. But I don't think any piece of paper can contain a regime like the Islamic Republic. We are dealing with a death cult that is hell-bent on exporting its Islamist fascistic ideology around the world. The constitution of this regime, the founding documents of the IRGC literally pronounce that out, that this regime is designed, its core mission is exporting the Islamic revolution to all countries around the world. And they're not going to stop. You just can look at the Islamic Republic's influence network in the United States. My colleagues have done extensive research on what this regime has been trying to do in this country, absorbing and consuming religious institutions, educational institutions, and masking themselves as charities to absorb children, indoctrinate them to hate the United States and fight this country from inside. That's what this regime is doing in the United States. Imagine what it's doing in Europe, what it's doing in the rest of Asia, in Africa. We are dealing with a regime that is exporting death and destruction around the world and is incapable of change. This regime is not going to change, and a piece of paper is not going to contain its behavior. The regime already has entered the end of times mode and is gearing up. It's gearing up for the next confrontation. The world needs to prepare as well.
You bring up a very good point about their end of the world view of life. Will you explain to our audience, and this is something Sam and I have tried to explain to people in our orbit, the Islamic regime does not care about their people. And the Islamic regime doesn't care what their people think about a war or freedoms. And you and your family being the recipient of their abuse and their evilness, will you explain to our audience how the Iranian regime just does not care about its people? They really don't care about world peace, frankly.
Oh, absolutely not. We are dealing, as I said earlier, we are dealing with a death cult. We are dealing with a regime that celebrates death. Every death notification that you read of regime officials, it says, we congratulate and condole you for the loss of your loved one. That's the language that is embedded in this regime's propaganda. They congratulate the death of their officers, their leaders, all of it. This is a regime that at its core celebrates death above love. And it's not going to change. The roots of this ideology is very, very deep. It's a specific narrow interpretation of Shia Islam mixed with leftist doctrines from universal governance to animosity towards the West and specifically the United States and Israel. These are core elements of this regime's identity. It's in its DNA. It's incapable of changing all of these elements. One of the things that people mix up is that when you look at the Islamic Republic, it makes rational decisions. It calculates the steps that it takes. It calculates risk and all of that, like every other state, like every other military commander. But when it comes to the motives of this state, the motives are absolutely insane. They are thinking, they believe they can dominate the whole world. There are actual documented comments by top regime officials saying that they are going to turn the White House into a Shia mourning hub. That's how they see themselves and their role in human history. We are dealing with a new type of Islamist civilization that is extremely expansionist, a system that has occupied Iraq, is controlling largely Lebanon, has occupied Yemen, what they did to Syria until very recently. Look at what they are doing in Kashmir. We are dealing with an expansionist Islamist empire. We are dealing with a bunch of psychopaths. They are not lunatics, but they are absolutely ideologically driven psychopaths.
So knowing that, there's supposedly, based on news reports, there's a 60-day agreement pending based on Trump's final approval. When you read it, it all sounds good if you were dealing with rational human beings. We are not dealing with rational human beings.
Well, if you're dealing with moral human beings, I guess.
Well, even rational.
They are rational.
Well, rational people care about living,
not ideologues.
So my question to you is, look, the United States does not have the support to do what it needs to do to kick out the regime. Sam and I have talked about this from day one.
You're going to need troops on the ground, and we're not putting them in.
I mean, our media won't allow it.
Right.
I mean, and we'll get to your article here in a minute. What do you think is a deal that the United States to have that can, make Iran more toothless for a while? It's not a forever thing. Is it just something saying, look, they're just going to turn around and start doing all of it again when Trump leaves office?
Or is there?
Or is there anything? Is there anything? Or have we just wasted our time?
So a couple of quick points. One of the issues that I have observed since I have moved to the United States is that Americans look at the world and people from different countries and see them as they are like us. They are just like us. And it's very true when you talk about the Iranian people, the actual humans who live inside Iran. We are literally like Americans. We have the same hopes and dreams. We have the same appetite for life, for joy, for growth, for prosperity, for freedom. Yes, that's true. But when you look at the Islamic Republic and its officials through the same lens, projecting your decency, your humanity, your aspirations for life on a death cult like the Islamic Republic, the result will be a bad deal like the JCPOA, the trap that enabled and emboldened the Islamic Republic and brought the world the October 7 terror attack. That's what happens when we project our own goodness on a death cult like the Islamic Republic. Yes, we are probably on the cusp of signing an MOU with the Islamic Republic. And I understand the political pressure that President Trump is facing that is forcing his hand to accept a deal or this diplomatic solution. Also, he has always vowed that he is going to prioritize diplomacy. He doesn't want new wars. Right. He wants to end wars. These are clear principles of President Trump, and he is sticking to his word. And that's huge credit to a world leader, especially in eyes of someone who came from a country like Iran, that the leaders lie left, right, and center and never are held accountable. We are dealing with a system in the United States that is accountable to its people, that the president is serving the population and is being held accountable towards the words that he has uttered during his campaigning period and after taking to office. So these are values that are very important to what I appreciate in the United States. But the thing is, with the Islamic Republic, remember the historic examples of signing deals with fascist states. A piece of paper didn't contain the Nazi Germany. A piece of paper is not going to contain the Islamic Republic either. I don't believe that even if an MOU is signed, it's going to contain the threat. The regime is preparing for the next round of conflict. They are already instigating violence. You have seen all the flare-ups over the past couple of days. It's going to continue like that until the world reaches another breaking point and open confrontation with this regime resumes. I hope it happens under President Trump, who has the guts to go after a regime like the Islamic Republic, the courage that no president before him displayed in face of the Islamic Republic. That's why President Trump is widely loved by the Iranian population inside and outside the country. Sorry that I'm going
No,
on
no,
a-
no. I want to follow up to that because, look, the ground troops thing is something I've been kind of arguing back and forth in my mind. I really want your opinion. It's hard to see anybody, even President Trump, agreeing to send in a full-scale U.S. invasion. Are there other forces out there that could be rallied, constituted? I feel like Kennedy's mishaps during the Bay of Pigs sort of took away a potential option in dealing with these things that we shouldn't have left off the table.
That's exactly what many Iranians are advocating for. We believe that a combination of targeted killing of regime officials strikes against the regime's arms of oppression, actually weakening them, rendering them unable to crack down on protests, and at the same time enabling the Iranian opposition inside and outside the country to finish the job. You don't need to deploy American boots to Iran to finish the job of overthrowing the Islamic Republic. Just in January this year, millions of Iranians took to the streets in Iran with clear demands, absolute end to the Islamic Republic, and they were so courageous, so resilient in their resistance against this regime that the Islamic Republic killed tens of thousands of unarmed protesters. Imagine if the United States might and our allies' capabilities paired with it became the support that this population needs for overthrowing the Islamic Republic. It's doable, it's achievable, it's very possible. It's really in arm's reach. We just need to actually come up with those plans that I hope that there are good people here in the United States in this or that agency who are working on it. It's possible, it's doable. We don't need American boots underground in Iran for overthrowing the Islamic Republic.
All right, we got 3 minutes left here. The reason you came to our attention is I read your opinion piece in the Washington Post. I saw America vilified in Iran. Then came the cultural shock. First of all, how hard was this to get placed in the Washington Post? And second, can you tell us within a minute or so the premise of your article and what you would tell, especially those on the left, why America is a beacon to the world?
When I was growing up in Iran, I was watching American movies. My dad was running an underground movie club. Movies were banned in Iran for the point of clarification. So he was running an underground movie club, and some of the movies that's left a significant mark on my young brain were Braveheart and Justice for All and Matrix and the multitude of American movies of a hero rising up against a despot and sacrificing everything for freedom, for justice, for liberty. And these values, these universal values that the United States has represented, the star-spangled banner has represented around the world, left a significant mark in my heart. And it has been the same for many, many Iranians. We look up to the United States as a model, as a project, as an epitome of human civilization, that a group of people from around the world came together in this country, built a nation that represents justice, liberty, and freedom for all. That's the dream that we live and die for. And then I arrived here in the United States, and from left to right, I'm seeing people who despise the guts of this country, especially on the left. They openly hate this country. I'm sure you have seen the videos of people saying that they are not going to celebrate 4th of July this year. We are conflicted about this country. What are you conflicted about? Every nation has a history. Every nation has made mistakes. You can celebrate this nation's contributions to human civilization and be critical of its mistakes as well. And on the right, you have people who wave the flags and cheer America. But when it comes to respecting this flag, respecting the institutions that are upholding this flag, from our security forces to our armed forces, they suddenly falter. They spun and spew conspiracy theories built and published by the left, by U.S. adversaries against this country.
It's crazy stuff. Khosro Isfahani, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate having you on the program. Folks, Breaking Battlegrounds will be back on the air next week, but if you're not already, go to breakingbattlegrounds.vote, get signed up for our podcast. We got lots of great content coming. If you want to stay tuned for that for today, if you download it, you get a great interview with Carrie Davis from FIRE and John Fleischman of The Flash Report, one of our recurring guests. You don't want to miss either of those. Breaking Battlegrounds back next week.
Sam and I are always talking about being prepared, whether it's hurricanes in Florida, earthquakes in California, flooding in Arizona, or supply chain disruptions.
Exactly, Chuck. When pharmacies shut down, it does not matter how tough you are, you still need access to critical medicine.
That's why we trust Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with 5 life-saving antibiotics and key over-the-counter meds, so you're covered when things get disrupted.
And Jace goes beyond just the Jace case. They also offer first aid kits, daily prescriptions, and long-term nutrition with Jace Pantry. Don't wait for the next hurricane warning or natural disaster. Take control of your health and peace of mind today.
Visit jace.com and use code FUTURE at checkout for $10 off your order. That's FUTURE at JASE.com.
In today's digital world, standing out is more important than ever. Whether you're running for office, leading a cause, or hosting a vote for the cutest pet in town, you need a web domain that's simple, memorable, and action-oriented. You need a .vote web domain. It's clear, impactful, and establishes a lasting presence for your campaign. Don't wait. Head to GoDaddy.com or name.com, type in your name.vote, and get started today. Because after all, every pet deserves a web address that's as special as they are.
Hello, Breaking Battlegrounds listeners. Did you know that private student loan debt in the United States totals about $300 billion? That's with a B. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed, which means people are behind on payments. YRefi, who is a proud sponsor of our show, refinances this distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They don't even care what your credit score is. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. YRefi is not a debt settlement company. They work with each borrower individually to tailor a loan that meets your specific financial situation and helps you pay this loan off. So, folks, if you would like to learn more how to put your mind at ease and your budget back on track, call YRefi at 877-400-9989 and tell them Sam and Chuck sent you. You can go and look into them at YRefi, YREFY.com to get more information. They will help you reduce your monthly payment and guarantee interest rates under 6%, ensuring financial relief to you as you pay off your private student loan. Jump on that website or call them today.
All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. Our next guest up today, Carrie Davis, works with thefire.org. They are frankly, I'm going to let her explain it because Chuck and I are big fans. This is one of the groups that I think is doing the most important work in the country right now. A lot of people don't know it, and you should be supporting them. So, Carrie Davis, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the program. And tell us a little bit about yourself and FIRE.
Thanks so much for having me. So FIRE stands for the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to defending free speech and free thought for all Americans, regardless of viewpoint. So we take cases from all across the political spectrum. We take cases that don't fit neatly onto a left-right divide, and our purpose or our mission is to defend free speech both in court and then also in the court of public opinion as well.
So basically, you're what the ACLU was 40 years ago.
At least for the First Amendment.
Yeah, for the First Amendment, correct?
Yeah, we only do First Amendment stuff, so we have a really focused and principled mission.
Good.
So how did you end up working with them?
I actually was a legal clerk during law school and absolutely loved it. Became kind of obsessed with First Amendment law and loved working with FIRE, loved the people, and so I decided to come back as an attorney after law school.
So I'm looking at your bio. It also says you were a teacher for 4 years before you went to law school. What did you teach, and what grade?
I taught second grade for 2 years, so all the subjects there. And then prior to that, I taught fifth and sixth grade literacy. So I had an essay writing class and then also a
Oh,
general
wow.
English class.
Wow. So if you had to do it again, would you rather teach second graders or fifth graders?
I would say for me, I loved all my students, but I was a better second grade teacher. I think the fifth graders got a little bit more, I don't know, like testy, how fifth graders can be. So my personality fit better with the second graders.
They're pushing the boundaries a little bit more by that point.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So the reason we brought Carrie on is to talk about a case that she has been working on for Fire, the Bushart case. And that, for folks who don't know the background, I read your write-up of this. I hadn't been paying attention. I hadn't seen it. I was floored.
Well, you're sort of like, how does this happen in America?
Yeah.
That was my reaction.
Yeah.
I was pretty offended by it. And anyway, Carrie, tell us about the case, what the ramifications were, and how you end up getting some restitution for this man.
Absolutely. And we shared your reaction too when we saw this come through. We were just, appalled. This case is about an American who was jailed for posting a political meme on Facebook. So our client, Larry, is a retired law enforcement officer in Tennessee. And he, following Charlie Kirk's assassination, he participated in a Facebook discussion by posting a series of political memes expressing his disagreement with what he felt was the disproportionate response to Charlie Kirk's death versus other incidents of gun violence. And one of those memes quoted President Donald Trump's statement from a school shooting that had occurred in Iowa over a year prior to when Larry was posting the meme. And that school just happened to have a similar name to a local school in Tennessee. And so just based on that and really nothing else, the local sheriff orchestrated Larry's arrest under a school threats statute in Tennessee. And Larry ultimately was jailed for 37 days for just posting this meme before the charges were dropped.
How did he not even get out on bond?
Well, his bond was $2 million.
So that's what you need 10%, right? So $200,000, is that what it was?
Yeah, he just couldn't afford it. And $2 million bond is just not something
that's insane.
One would see, one would expect for something like this. But that's why he was there for so long. He couldn't afford the bond.
I mean, this is the kind of thing you see in a fascist state like the UK these days. You don't expect it in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen reporting from the UK that they're arresting.
Yeah, I was making a little joke about them being fascist.
I literally just looked this up, Sam and Carrie. In Tennessee, rape and aggravated rape bail bonds are set on a case-by-case basis, but they're commonly ranged between $30,000 and $1 million.
Oh my God!
So $2 million for this, but if you're accused of aggravated rape, as low as $30,000.
Yeah, it was just outrageous, the bond here.
So how did this case play out, and at what point did you get involved with it, and did Fire get involved?
So we made contact with Larry's criminal defense attorney while he was still incarcerated. And once the charges were dropped, we were able to represent Larry in a civil rights lawsuit under the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment. And we are ultimately pleased to announce that we obtained a $835,000 settlement on his behalf.
Well, and well deserved. I mean, after that, but what statute did they charge him under first? I guess. I mean, I'm struggling with that. Like,
yeah,
what did they charge him?
I mean,
with?
first of all, explain what the meme was. My understanding is it wasn't a pro Charlie Kirk thing. Is that the right? It was. Explain what it was so people understand what the political influence was on this.
Yeah. So the meme was a picture of Donald Trump, and it quoted something that Donald Trump had said, which was, "We have to get over it." And then the sort of caption showed that this was something that Donald Trump had said a day after a school shooting in Perry, Iowa. And then the meme also had the phrase, "This seems relevant today." And so Larry was posting this to communicate, following Charlie Kirk's assassination, his disagreement with what he felt was, a disproportionate response to Charlie Kirk's assassination versus like the school shootings or other instances of gun violence. So he was sort of expressing his political, disagreement with the response to these kinds of events, if that makes sense.
So one of the other things I wasn't aware of in reading your piece, I was kind of stunned by this. You're not only involved with Larry's case here, but it says here, hundreds of Americans were censored for online speech after Kirk's assassination. You're also representing Monica Meeks, who the state fired solely for a Facebook post criticizing Kirk, and then cite a case of an Austin Peay State University professor who was fired for citing Kirk's words on gun violence. Had you ever seen this level of legal repercussions for people on speech in America before that event? Because it seems like that's a kind of a fire break for free speech.
It is alarming, the scale of the speech violations that we are seeing recently. But I will say that, depending on who's in political office and who's in power, it's unfortunately predictable that the opposite view gets censored. So following, the George Floyd protests, it was the other way, where we were seeing people fired for speech critical of the Black Lives Matter movement. In both cases, protected political speech. Some might find those views offensive on either side, but unfortunately, it's kind of a human nature thing to want to censor views that one disagrees with, and that's why FIRE is here to defend speech regardless of the viewpoint.
It's too bad FIRE can't teach people to learn how to just change the channel once again. I mean, come on.
So
folks.
let me, you work in this. So you work on this issue. You live this issue. Are you concerned about the First Amendment in America?
Yeah, I definitely. I think it's one of these things where you look at history, and humankind has historically tended to deal with conflict through violence, and free speech is maybe the single most important innovation in terms of an alternative to violence. We solve our conflicts, or we should solve our conflicts through discussion and debate, and sometimes that debate is heated and uncomfortable, but it is a million times more superior to actually using violence to deal with these things. So Charlie Kirk's assassination is an extreme, tragic example of the difference between speech and violence. So yeah, I am concerned.
What can people do to help support FIRE and the work you all are doing?
I would definitely encourage people to check out our website, fire.org. We have information about all our cases. We have lots of information about the First Amendment. If you're interested in any First Amendment topic, we probably have an explainer or an article about it. You can donate to us. We're a nonprofit organization, so we do rely on donations from the public, and spread the word, about what we do. Just defend the First Amendment. We exercise your own First Amendment rights and defend those of others as well.
Carrie, one last question before we let you go here. Does FIRE have programs for teachers or for sending folks into schools to help work with kids in those environments and teach them the value of the First Amendment and free speech?
Well, we do actually have a program for high schoolers in the summer called the Free Speech Forum that is like a week-long. It's kind of like a summer camp, but themed around free speech and civil discourse. And it's completely free for students. And so that people can find more information about that program.
Is it a webinar or in person?
It's in person in DC.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Program.
Yeah, send us that. I think we'll post that and share that, because I think that's just a brilliant thing you guys are doing.
And there may be some 21, 22-year-old illegals in Virginia who want to do that course too.
I will say, I'm not sure if the deadline has passed to sign up yet, but I'll send it to you guys.
That'd be great.
By the way, did you know, Carrie, that you can still go to public school in Virginia if you're illegal at the age of 20, up to age 22?
I did not know
We just
that.
found that out today. So that's your little trivia for the day.
Yeah, that one blew my mind. All right. Carrie Davis, thank you so much for joining us today. We very much appreciate having you on the program. Folks, you can follow all the work FIRE is doing on X at thefire.org. And Breaking Battlegrounds will be coming back with more here in just a moment, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. Our next guest up, John Fleischman. He is the author of The Flash Report and So Does It Matter. You want to check out both of those on X at Flash Report and So Does It Matter. You can find at sodoesitmatter.com. He has been a regular guest on this program, spent 35 years in the trenches of California politics, worked at every level of government. He's done appearances on Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC, and his work has appeared pretty much in every major publication. John Fleischman, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me back, and you guys are doing great work, so it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of what you're doing.
Well, we want to talk California politics, but I'm going to start with the first question. So you've had over half of the entertainers invited for the Great American State Fair drop out of the event at the National Mall. People like Martina McBride, Bret Michaels. Why do Republicans keep wanting to get washed up celebrities on our side? It's a really weird thing because we want people to like us. It's sort of like the Sally Field Oscars. They really, really, really like me. Why do we do this to ourselves?
I think this might be a rhetorical question out the gate. I think it might be because I don't really have an answer for you other than everybody, like you said, wants to be popular and find all the popular kids. I think from the way you asked the question, I think we have the same opinion, which is who the hell wanted any of those people on the National Mall anyway?
Seriously.
I mean, what is Bret Michaels, 90? All right, let's get to the serious matters. Spencer Pratt, is he going to win? What's going on out there?
My take on the situation is that Spencer Pratt is in a great position to make the runoff. So in California, the way the mayor's race works is if somebody gets 50% plus one of the votes in our June election next week, they would be the mayor, and it would be over. But if nobody gets 50% plus one in June, then the top two vote getters go all the way to November, so another 5 months, and then they run off on the general election ballot in Los Angeles. And it's abundantly clear from a lot of different ways of looking at it that the embattled incumbent unpopular Karen Bass, or as Spencer Pratt says, Karen Basura, for the uneducated, that's Spanish for trash.
Yeah.
But she's not going to get to 50%. And you can tell she's not going to get to 50% because LA is a union town, right? The special interests there put vast amounts of money into electing the politicians that feather their nest. And if Karen Bass was within a stone's throw of making it in June, you'd see the unions all in with pro-Bass commercials trying to push her into the mayorship and just eliminating all this. And instead, they're clearly holding their fire a bit, and I think they're actually trying to help elevate Spencer Pratt, which might go to your other question, which is, if we see Pratt and Bass go all the way through to November, first and foremost, it's going to be hella entertaining for all of us because obviously Spencer Pratt's running, not only is he running a great campaign with his videos, but now everyone out there who's talented at creating videos is making their own.
Right.
And so it's like a video palooza. But the real question is, do viral videos equal campaign math?
Right.
California is roughly a 60-40 state where Democrats end up with a 20-point margin in the state, especially when things are framed around Donald Trump. In Los Angeles, it's more like 80-20. Maybe even 82-18. That's how small the Republican voter registration is in the city of Los Angeles. And so that's the base from which Spencer Pratt starts. And then you start to try to get the disaffected Democrats. But my fear, and I'll close with this as my initial answer to your question, is that we now have a pattern in California where they use Donald Trump as the foil. And I suspect a general election campaign between Spencer Pratt and whether it's Karen Bass or there's a third candidate, Nithya Raman, who's also a DSA left-wing radical on the city council. It's entirely possible that she and Spencer beat out the mayor and the mayor is just eliminated. It's possible. But when you get to that general election, they are going to tie Donald Trump around Spencer Pratt's neck with millions of dollars of advertising, and it's going to make it really, really hard for Pratt to break through. So I would never say never, but if one of you gentlemen wants to move to Massachusetts tomorrow and run for office, what are your odds?
Right.
And that's the challenge that we run into is Spencer Pratt is getting millions of views, but how many of those millions are in Los Angeles?
Right.
And he's now made 7 figures of donations have come in, but I'm willing to bet you that's 25, 50, and $100 from people watching viral videos in Florida, in Texas, in places where Republicans still have hope. Those beleaguered Republicans in Los Angeles have to be saying to themselves, this is all interesting, but I live in hell.
Los Angeles is also at the forefront of something that we've seen Democrats do really effectively over the last 15 or so years, which is to essentially reconstitute the boss party system with the unions, where the governments have gotten so big that their voting base between their own employees, their families, and all of the various contractors and people who depend on that government cash is so much that Democrats have locked it down basically by controlling the flow of those dollars.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 examples in Los Angeles that kind of reinforce your hypothesis here. The first of which is to tell you that it's not just what I'd call the frontline civilian employee unions, non-sworn unions, but even the same police officers who are getting underfunded, the same police officers who are dealing with a city council that has literally passed a motion to put into effect the idea that armed officers should no longer be making traffic stops in the city. These same crazy, Karen Bass sits atop of that. It's the Police Protective League that is spending the most money on the reelection of Karen Bass, because at the end of the day, these public employee unions aren't really about their subject matter. Like, they're not about, it's all about salary and benefits for the cops.
Right.
It's not about anything else. And so you've got that going on. And then the other item that I draw to your attention, this takes about 60 seconds to set up, but in this, there's this phenomena where a local government that's running short on money, what they do is they move their budgeted money towards crap that nobody wants them to spend it on. So in Los Angeles, it's free legal services for illegal aliens, or it's the homeless industrial complex, and they short funding for things like, in this case, streetlights. And now they've gone to property owners in the city saying, we need a massive tax increase to keep the streetlights on, which of course they don't.
Right.
They're using the money for the streetlights to fund the illegal alien defense fund. And so the reason I bring that up is because the votes on a property tax in the city are based on how much property you own. And the city owns so much property and it gets to vote that this thing starts with a massive advantage before voters even get to weigh in. And so suddenly somebody who's now paying $40 a year on their property bill to the city, it's going to go up to $160 or $200 a year to pay for street lights.
Right.
It's nuts. And that's not even getting any coverage. That's just flying under the radar on the June election.
You had a piece out recently, Los Angeles socialists love their billionaires, in the California Post. I have sort of 2 questions about this one. Are these billionaires ideologically aligned with the far left, and so they're using government essentially to protect their position in commerce? Or are these people fools who think they can tame this socialist beast?
So I think it's a mix. I think in some cases you've got grift going on, but I think in a lot of cases you have, I don't mean to diminish these people that have made a lot of wealth, but then they marry people that come into this wealth, or they're second generation and they inherit the wealth. And what you've got are guilty, hard left-wing rich people who aren't quite feeling guilty enough to donate their money away. But they're feeling guilty enough that they want to spend their money to elect the people that are their spirit animals. And so these are very left-wing progressive people who don't respect that it's the capitalist system that allowed them to have all of this wealth in the first place. And in fact, I think, like I said, they may feel guilty that they have so much when other people have so little. It's hard to get into the head of somebody who would be like this, but our biggest example in California is not really in the LA mayor's race. It's certainly present there. It's Tom Steyer, who's running for governor of California. He ran for president. He's now well north of $250 million of spending of his money, and he's a walking guilt trip. He made his money through fossil fuels. He made his money through investing in private prisons, and now his tagline that he's trying to use is, "You need a billionaire to take on the billionaires." Suddenly, all of these left-wing causes, whether it's the public employee unions, whether it's hard-line socialist groups, have all endorsed him because they like what he wants to give them. So the story may not be the billionaires that are willing to shed with their money. It may be these shallow socialist groups that are basically saying, well, we don't like billionaires, but we'll take the ones that are funding our cause.
Well, they've always been willing to whore themselves out for people who hand them cash. Yes. I mean, that's the history of socialist organizations in a nutshell. But Steyer, I gotta say, I do not give him the credit of this is guilt. I think this guy is right there with George Soros, ambitious, and he uses government to create expand his wealth. Right after his initial foray in fossil fuels, everything he has done is a government subsidy program.
Right.
Well, go ahead, John.
And he's a stone's throw away from making the runoff for governor, so we'll just see what happens.
So let's talk about the runoff here. You came out early and said when Fox News was parodying that we're going to have 2 Republicans in the runoff, and you came out and just said this is never happening. Does Steve Hilton have a chance in November?
So here's what I would tell you. First of all, it's not zero. I would tell you that this is a state that breaks on a partisan break 60-40. And with Donald Trump having endorsed Hilton, and there's plenty of video. I mean, if you want to label somebody as a Trump candidate, you couldn't have more B-roll than you have on Steve Hilton, who has been at the White House. Trump has talked to him. Trump calls him. So the answer to your question is something needs to happen to the Democrat that's the nominee. So, for example, if it had been Hilton and Swalwell, and then the sexual abuse and assault allegations had come out against Swalwell, that might have been a scenario where Hilton could have taken advantage of it. So what happens is you get into a general election and 2 things need to happen. Number one, Hilton has to execute in perfection, which he's capable of doing, and you have to have a bunch of donors that are in the wings who aren't going to be giving to you right away because they're not interested in dropping money into a guy that's going to lose by 20 points. Uh-huh. But they're in the wings along with the Republican Governors Association and Trump Inc. so that if, let's just say it's Xavier Becerra, whose own chief of staff is under federal indictment and I think has taken a plea agreement. I don't know if you guys have covered this on Breaking Battlegrounds, but the case that's going on here is that when Xavier Becerra was nominated and became the Health and Human Services Secretary, he wanted to bring his congressional chief of staff with him, but couldn't pay him enough, whatever enough is. And so they ended up working a side deal where his congressional campaign committee, which of course had a bunch of money in it, they moved money from the Congressional Campaign Committee into like a nonprofit, and then the nonprofit augmented the salary of his chief of staff from the outside, none of which is legal, but allegedly this was done without Becerra's knowledge. But nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. There's an ongoing investigation taking place. Is that big enough to blow up Becerra in a general election? I don't know.
I wouldn't bet on it. That guy is pretty smooth. I mean...
He is. And so, but that's what I'm talking about. Something has to happen. This is a situation where it's the tortoise and the hare, and we're the tortoise, they're the hare, but the hare's got to trip on something. The trip's got to face plant on the track in order to give Steve Hilton a chance to go dun 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 bye, and go
right
past him and break the ribbon on the other end. But I will say it's more than just about California governor, right? We've got a lot of stuff going on in California. There's a voter ID initiative that's qualified for the ballot, which is important. We've got other, we've got thousands of offices for school board, city council. We've got probably 3 congressional seats in the balance. We know that we're going to go from having 9 seats down to maybe somewhere between 4 and 6 seats. But the 4, in this tight race for Congress, those extra couple seats could matter. If you don't have a Republican at the top of the ticket for governor, you're going to see a depressed GOP turnout, which may not matter statewide, but it's going to, there are 5 million Republicans in California. We have more Republicans landlocked in California than there are in any other state. But they may not be able to compete statewide, but we have a lot of regional elections. I live in Orange County, where we're a purple state. And there are a tremendous number of Republicans in office who could get swept out if we don't have a Republican in the runoff. So even Hilton making the runoff becomes a major victory in a state where you have to really set expectations. Whether he could actually get elected in November, like I said, the chances are not 0, but they're out of Hilton's control because something bad has to happen to the Democrat in order for Hilton to take advantage of the opportunity.
One last question here before we let you go, John. I want to go back to Spencer Pratt's campaign for a moment. Based on the campaign he has ran, do you see other Republicans imitating that in other races for city council and mayor in the cities up and down California?
Well, so what I would tell you is that I think that Spencer Pratt's candidacy has opened up everybody's eyes to the approachability of really developing creative social media without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars each time you want to do it. Like you could do it on your computer using AI. And so I do think you're going to see a lot more of it. How effective it is, I think that if Pratt's showing his ability to raise money, and so I think that you're going to see more candidates doing it. And then at some point, we're going to be back on this programming, having the conversation going, okay, what kind of viral ads can stick out now that there's 800,000 viral ads? Spencer Pratt has caught a moment, when you're the entrepreneur who does something first, all eyes are on you.
Right.
But, by the time we get to November, every single X-Men is going to be used. Every single Batman is going to be used. Every Superman's going to be used. And everyone's going to be saying, this is Sparta in an ad. It's just the way it's going to be.
Well, John, we appreciate it. Who is the biggest threat to the Dodgers not winning the World Series this year, by the way, before we end?
I think the biggest threat is going to be the Atlanta Braves. They are on fire this year. So it's all going to get decided before they get to the World Series because it's at some point the Braves and the Dodgers are going to face off, and I predict that whoever wins that is going to be the next world champion team.
All right.
I sadly have to agree, and I don't like either of those teams. Darn it.
Hey, you know what? We're your world champion Dodgers, too, so we're here for you.
Oh.
Thanks again, guys, for
if
everything
this wasn't it.
And that's the last word. John Fleshman, thank you for joining us.
We may never bring this man on again. That's terrible.
Hey,
John,
thanks for having me.
Thank
John,
you, buddy.
thank you
Talk
so
to you later.
much.
Thank you. All right. We need some music because we're going to have Bee's Corner here. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Murder, mystery, secrets untold. The truth gets set free when B gets a hold. Crimes where killers roam off free, or even ones where they get caught at the scene. From cold case files to headline news, she's breaking it all down just for you. So come take a seat, don't miss a beat. These crime corners where the stories go deep.
My favorite part of you rushing over to your seat and kicking Sydney out is that you put lip gloss on. Like, we're on radio. No one's hearing this.
I put this on like 3 segments ago. Thank you very much.
I watch you just right over there in that chair in the corner.
Run it back, guys. Give them the proof.
So what chaos do we have in the world today you're talking about?
So, as promised from last week, I have our prison groupie topic.
Oh, yay!
Okay, this one actually, it's really good. Okay. So, do any of you guys know what hybristophilia is?
No.
Ooh, okay. So, it is the sexual interest and attraction to those who commit crimes.
How many people have it?
90% are women,
Oh, yeah, I believe
Well,
that.
obviously.
I mean,
They don't have an exact number.
There's a reason they like the bad boy. That's why there's these memes on it,
It's
right?
okay, yeah. So there's a couple different
This
reasons.
is just the extreme version of that guy.
It's the fix me syndrome. It's the I can fix him syndrome, but a little on steroids.
Okay.
So pretty much, why do women do this was the big question. But from a psychological perspective, they say they might have had trauma in the past. Women love the fact that these men, they're locked up. They're not around you. You get to live at home alone. You get the romance, but you don't have to deal with the interactions and the type of things that relationships require.
Okay, so
the real world relationship type of, benefits or sometimes not benefits.
You know what flashed through my mind right then? That the guy version of this is like these sex robots.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. Okay. So
All I was thinking is you're looking like, that's not a bad relationship. She's way off. Sam's idea of relationship,
So then, there's also the I can fix him syndrome, as I mentioned.
Which drives every parent in the world nuts.
Yeah, that needs no elaboration, really. Yeah. We all know what that is. But then researchers often find that women who have a violent past or a past with abuse or highly coercive relationships, that they go to these types of men, and they think in-prison partners offer a way to experience the thrill and emotional intensity of a dangerous man, but you avoid the physical harm in your home because he's locked up.
Okay, in a weird way, that actually makes more sense than the rest.
So I did some digging into this, and I was like, what are some crazy cases of this? Because there's so many different ways to look at it. There's the woman who's broken, but then there's the woman who's a hybristophilia who's just crazy. So the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, he was in a relationship with a girl from a metal death band who was obsessed with him. He was one of the serial killers with the most infamous and the most outspoken groupies. It was his branding, though, that they say got this because he acted like a rock star. Right. And this was like the AC/DC era. That was his favorite band. So, and he was a Satanist, as we know. But he killed 13 individuals, proclaimed to be the Satanist, even flashed the pentagram in court, his first hearing. So this fueled the fire to what they called the Satanic Panic. But some women in the world were attracted to this. They proclaimed their love on daytime TV shows. They would appear outside of his trials to see him. There was this one woman named Christina Lee Young. She was a mother of 2. She was obsessed with him. She claimed they were engaged. She went on the Sally talk show. She went on the Sullivan talk show. She went on another talk show with another woman who also was writing to Ramirez that loved him. But she liked him because she liked the check, and when she said that on TV, Christina slapped her, and they cut it out of the air. But there's still videos of it online of her getting slapped after saying she just wanted the check. Yeah, because the other girl took it really personal because she loved Ramirez, but she also thought he was innocent. And then so they ended up getting divorced. Or they actually never married. My apologies. She stopped visiting him and stopped writing him. He then got another groupie. Now, this woman was named Ava O, and she was in a death rock band called Christian Death. And now she was with him because she was a little Satanist herself. She actually wrote him a song, too. She wrote him 31 letters initially, hoping he would reply. He wrote 31 back. She wrote him a song, and that's when he wanted the first conjugal visit after his little song was released, and he was probably feeling good. If you have kids in the car, turn it off. But this was some of the lines. It was, "I want to speak to Mr. R.R. Would he have spared me? Would he have pulled his gun out? If I was on my knees, he will rip you up, stick it in." Yeah. You've got the stuff, Richard. You're welcome. Please come in.
There's just a lot of damaged people in the world.
A lot of damaged people.
Wow.
So, yeah. And, yeah. That didn't last long, though, because then he ended up marrying a woman named Doreen. But Doreen divorced him after she thought he was innocent. She divorced him after she found out, though, the evidence of him raping and killing a 9-year-old girl.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. But then lastly, he ended up he just had so many women coming in and out, and it was a consistent thing, but like to the last day he was alive. He was on death row, but he never got the death penalty because he died, like himself.
Natural causes.
Yeah, but he ended up getting engaged to a 23-year-old. She asked to keep his body in her home after he passed.
What the heck?
Mm-hmm. Now moving on to Ted Bundy. So his victims, they had a certain type. He liked the middle part, he liked the hoop earrings, and he liked the certain shade of brown hair. So these women, knowing that, would show up to his court hearings. Some women would dye their hair, but they'd have the middle part, the hoop earrings. They were sporting it for him. And he did end up marrying one woman named Carol Ann Boone, but she testified she believed he was an innocent man, even after like bite marks were being matched from his mouth to the victims. She still believed him. He actually followed an old Florida law on trial where she was on the stand being a character witness saying he was like a good man. And he, in Florida, you could make a statement pretty much saying like you're marrying this person.
Right.
And if, they say yes to the statement, you're married. In a court of law in Florida. It was an old law. I don't think it stands up anymore. So they ended up getting married that way. But she came to her senses too.
So what percentage of male prisoners get engaged in prison? Do you know?
No, that I could not find. There's not a number.
Come back next week, that number. So come back next week with that number. So tell our audience again, what is it called?
Hybristophilia. And the last thing I have to say is one of the cases we actually covered, Taylor Schabusiness, remember her, the girl from Wisconsin, killed her boyfriend. She was one of Jeffrey Dahmer's groupies. She loved him. They found search stuff on her phone that she was searching pictures of his butt. And she also, she was searching pictures of Jeffrey Dahmer's butt. And he had a lot of groupies, even though he was gay. But just hybristophilia. But she also was searching Jeffrey Dahmer walking sexy into court. Yeah, and she's the one who dismembered her boyfriend.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So, folks, give us that word again.
Hybristophilia. And if you're suffering from hybristophilia,
talk to your grandfather. He'll shake some common sense into you.
Right, aprisoner.com and find your prisoner pen pal.
Well, that was a great Bees moment today, folks. Thank you for listening in today. We hope you'll like this episode. We hope you'll share this episode. We hope you'll give us a 5-star rating. On behalf of Jeremy, Sam, Sydney, Brendan, and myself.
Very glossy, Brendan.
very glossy,
Brendan.
We hope you have a great weekend. Please check us out on breakingbattlegrounds.vote or wherever you get your podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube, and you can see the evidence that Brendan was putting lip gloss on.
It was Carmex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.